Welcome to a special episode of the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast presented by TrainerRoad. Today, we are joined by a TrainerRoad employee that some of you actually have met before if you've are a long-time listener to the podcast. It's Tiffany Keep from South Africa. The reason that we're having Tiffany on today is because Tiffany has unlocked a major career goal achievement. Tiffany is going to the Olympics to represent South Africa. She rides for the trade team of Doss Hutchinson Brother UK. Tiffany, I am so excited for you. I remember, following your trajectory now for a handful of years, having you worked here or having had you work here at TrainerRoad. It's been cool to see your progression, and it's all led toward this. Is this the goal of all goals, to go to the Olympics to represent your country?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty high up there. Firstly, thank you for having me. Really excited to be here today. And to represent South Africa at the Olympics is definitely a goal. I remember writing down on a sheet of paper of my top goals for what I wanted to achieve in cycling when I was around 10, 11 years old. So yeah, for sure, this kind of opportunity is next level, and I'm really excited to make the most of it.
This is we're going to go into like that, the 10-year-old moment when you're writing down those goals. And this you're going to represent South Africa in the road race. You have represented South Africa at different world championship events and also African games for both disciplines in terms of road racing and also in mountain biking. And in this case, you're going to Paris and you're going to be racing in the road race. Starts in the city, goes out and does a loop outside of the city, comes back and does circuits. It's one of those death by 1,000 cuts courses where it's just a huge amount of climbing just accumulated over a ton of punches. We'll get into all that. But Tiffany, I want to step back and kind of give everybody that's listening here, help them meet you and understand your story. So then that way, when we're watching the Olympic road race in a little over a month's time, when we're watching that Olympic road race, we can look and know who Tiffany is and kind of like our horse in that race, we can have a special connection to them. Tiffany, you got started in cycling from your dad. Is that correct? And was it just like fun, or was your dad competitive? And is that why you went into racing? Like, what took you from getting started in racing to actually choosing to be competitive?
So my dad taught me how to ride a bike when I was just 3 years old. So cycling has been a part of my life for most of it, to be fair. And it only really became something that I became competitive in at around the age of 10. My dad, he was my original training partner since day one, and we would go out on rides together on the mountain bike. And he was such an integral person in the way that he really helped to teach me everything I know about riding a mountain bike. We would sit for ages on technical sections, and he would talk me through how to ride it. He'd ride it first and show me, and then say, "Okay, now it's your turn." And the thing that I became to learn with him was that he would never push me to do something that he didn't believe that I could do. It was more about convincing myself that I was capable of doing it. So there was a lot of trying times, sitting crying on berms and kind of having little pep talks to myself to try features, but I would eventually do it, and then I would wonder why I was stressing so much about it, and he'd be like, "I told you so." So he was so influential in that way. And I remember there was this one moment when we were riding home, and there was this one hill that is quite close to home, that my mom usually picked me up at the bottom of, and he said, "Today we're going to ride up this hill, and it's pretty steep." And he said, "We're going to do it today," and I made it up. It was hard at the time, which is pretty cute when I look back now as to how significant it was. But it was at that moment that my dad said to me, "Okay, well, the provincial championships mountain bike cross country event is happening very soon, and I'm going to enter you, and you're going to try it out and see." And it was kind of like wrapping my head around this idea. I remember arriving at the starting line, and there was all these other kids that had these super fancy bikes, and like were all looking at me like, "Who's this new person?" And I was still riding with flat pedals at the time, at the age of I think 9, and I ended up winning the race Um, and it was yeah, so I was the provincial champion for that year, and, it was in that race that it kind of all changed for me. This sort of picture of my dad and I standing on the podium, and, he's giving me a big hug, and, I could just at that moment, it was kind of like the penny dropped that, like, "Oh, this was actually quite fun." Like, racing and being competitive in the sport is actually pretty cool, and I realize now that that day when my dad and I rode up that hill together, he kind of saw this potential in me and, has really helped to, like, grow that and, be involved in the growth and the process. And yeah, I'm very grateful to him for all those years of patience and driving me around to races, and that really kick-started this whole journey for me. Where later I then realized that I could make a career out of cycling, that I could do it for a job one day, which is pretty cool.
It's amazing. What a cool story. I hope we can get that photo of your dad and you,
Yeah.
at that podium. We can put that up on screen so people can see it. Where did you grow up in South Africa?
So I grew up on the East Coast, just outside of Durban. And funnily enough, those few years when I was getting into cycling as a competitive sport, we South Africa hosted a few rounds of the Mountain Bike World Cup. They took place at Cascades Mountain Bike Park in Pietermaritzburg, which is only like a 45-minute drive from where I grew up. So we went out to watch those editions, and I remember spending the whole weekend out there on the mountain and running around the track, watching all these superstars standing down these rock gardens, which looked really scary at the time, and I was wondering how on earth do they do this. Um, and, I remember watching, Yolanda Neff ride down there, and she really inspired me by her style and her confidence on the technical sections, and, yeah, we were really spoilt with the opportunity to have, a lot of really nice riding in the area, and, that definitely contributed to kind of growing my love for the sport and, yeah, being able to explore these amazing areas.
Oh, cool. Yeah, those were famously very technical World Cup courses too. Really fun
Yeah,
to watch in terms of spectating. I assume, yeah,
yeah,
you put in a lot of Ks just running around up and down those hills.
yeah.
Tiffany, you progressed through the sport, but when you look back at like your list of achievements, my gosh, it's you've raced and represented for South Africa for quite in different races many different times. You've also raced Cape Epic. That's where people may know you before because we talked to you during your efforts at Cape Epic. And last year you did it and you finished sixth, which is incredible. Looking at this, did you ever have this goal of going to road racing or was it always mountain biking? When did road come into the picture?
Yeah, it's, quite a funny story really. So I always had this idea in my head that I would race on the cross country World Cup circuit professionally, and I pretty much had that goal up until I was at least second year junior. And yeah, I only started road cycling a few years after I started racing on the mountain bike. Probably around the age of 13 was when I started getting into road. It was actually a good family friend of ours, Kevin Leverage. He taught me how to ride a road bike. He let me use his wife's pink Merida.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, Max was very, very kind to let me borrow that for pretty much the whole season. And yeah, he taught me pretty much everything I know about road cycling. It was such a different experience where I came from the mountain bike background, and there's really only one tactic in mountain biking most of the time. It's just go as hard as you can. And, on the road, the first thing he taught me was how to sit on a wheel, how you need to be able to sit close to a wheel and not being afraid to do so. Yeah, like how different it was to mountain biking was a really cool and exciting challenge that I thoroughly enjoyed. And, funnily enough, the very first time I went to race overseas in Europe was actually on the road, not on the mountain bike, and that was when I was around
Wow.
16. The provincial federation took us over to race in Ireland actually at the Aerogol Youth Road Tour. Funnily enough, when I speak to my teammates now, a few of them have actually raced that exact race as well and found it really surprising that we came all the way overseas to to do it. Um, but we had such an amazing hotspot of talent in the area that I grew up in, and I think that really contributed to my kind of trajectory in the sport as well. There was a lot of really good cyclists a similar age to me, and I thoroughly enjoyed being able to go and race with them. And yeah, my friend Kian, who is Kevin's son, we raced together throughout our kind of youth and junior years. He also really helped me a lot with racing on the road and teaching me a thing or two. And about from the age of 19, I went overseas to race with the national team. We went straight from African Games in Morocco and went over to Italy. We raced a 3-day tour in Italy and then went straight from there to France to race the infamous Ardèche 7-day race, which is quite renowned in the women's peloton for being ridiculously hard. And yeah, we climbed several mountains during that tour, but it was during that time really that well, since the beginning of that year that I would say Ashley Momopasio reached out to me, and she kind of saw this kind of potential in me to really give it a good go on the road, and she kind of opened my eyes to what the world of road cycling is all about and the opportunities that are available there. And looking back now, I mean, even when I was junior and going to represent South Africa on the mountain bike, I had actually also qualified to represent South Africa for the Roads World Champs events as well. But unfortunately, I couldn't miss that much school in 1 year. So I kind of had to prioritize one discipline. And it would have been really interesting now to see how my career possibly would have ended up had I gone to those races when I was younger. When I was in my first year of under 23, I kind of had my eyes open to this amazing world that I didn't really know all that much about up until then. So I had definitely been following more of the mountain bike scene. But through Ashley and her husband Carl's guidance, I was able to learn a lot in a short space of time. And that definitely ignited the fire within me to give it a go and see, yeah, if I could land a ride on a European team one day, whether that was on the mountain bike or the road. I think it was just a matter of pursuing both and seeing which door opened and then pursuing that with my whole heart. So yeah, now we've ended up here.
It's amazing. What strengths did you have coming from the mountain bike side over to the road? Did you find that you had anything that kind of like gave you a boost or a leg up on the rest of the road riders? I mean, was it the classic answer of like you were more comfortable in technical conditions?
Yeah, so definitely the skills aspect of mountain biking that carries through very nicely onto the road. I would say I'm not really afraid to do descents fast and even as far as riding in the bunch, which is such a foreign concept to any South African rider and is really probably the biggest the biggest barrier we have to overcome with racing in Europe is learning how to race in these big bunches because I mean we don't have anything like that back home. We have these wide roads and I mean on a good day we get like 30 riders pitching up to do a race where over here it's 150 or at least over 100 at every start and the crazy thing is most of those people could win the race as well. So are very much capable of doing so and I think, yeah, just having kind of that fearlessness from the mountain bike and that confidence in my bike handling skills has definitely helped me progress through that process of learning how to ride in a bunch a lot quicker than, I don't know, maybe if I hadn't come from that background. And I'm always so grateful for it in so many ways. Even so far as my riding style, I really prefer punchy courses and a punchy, aggressive style of racing, which is very similar to what you get with mountain biking. And a really hard race is still something that I really enjoy. And again, that's exactly what mountain biking is. Like you just have to get stuck in and it's grippy, it's hard, but you just have to keep pushing and never give up. And that's the way I like to race.
Yeah. What things that didn't come as easily for you?
I would say the tactical side.
Yeah.
Like every mountain biker when they come onto the road, they just like you can totally see it when they race. I was one of those people, so I can speak from experience. But you go straight to riding on the front, like in the wind. I used to get very annoyed with negative racing and frustrated. So then I'd take my frustration out by trying to make the race hard and riding on the front, and it just it
Yeah, this sounds
worked.
like me too.
Yeah, it worked for maybe one race, and then people realized what I was on about, and yeah, was straight onto my wheel after that, and yeah, had no chance. So it's, I guess, like, yeah, the tactical and the strategy side of the racing is something that we always have to work on, and using things like aerodynamics and drafting, which is now becoming more relevant in mountain biking as well. But certainly when I was racing, when I was young, it wasn't. I mean, I wasn't thinking about how to be as aero as possible. I was just thinking about getting from point A to B as fast as possible, and didn't realize the kind of factors that come into play with doing that, which is about conserving energy. Ultimately, that's what the biggest thing that I had to learn, how to conserve energy so that when I did use it, I can use it in the most effective way possible and really capitalize on that. And I think that's is the key point that is
Yeah.
still that I'm still in the process of learning. And yeah, it's definitely a bit of a challenge, but a good challenge.
How do you deal with that situation now when you are frustrated by the negative racing? Instead of just reacting with making the race hard, what do you do now in a situation where everybody's just chasing anything down and nobody wants anything to go, but also nobody wants to ride fast?
Yeah, it's a really tricky one because in road racing, there's a lot of like mind games that go on as well. You have to be really thick-skinned, especially with racing over here, because people will shout at you all the time, and like
Hmm.
you just can't take anything personally. And in that kind of situation, for sure, you'll get some verbal abuse from other people if you're just going to sit on and almost contribute to the negative racing. But sometimes it's in your best interest, and being patient is something I've had to learn to do more of. In a case where the racing is quite negative, it is still very frustrating for me. But I've had to learn to just kind of brush off that frustration and kind of see any windows of opportunity and really make the most of those. I find it particularly hard when I go back home and race in South Africa because I'm very much on my own there. I don't have the support of a team. So we have a few main teams in South Africa, but then they outnumber everyone else who's not on a team. And so it can kind of contribute towards more negative racing. And sometimes breakaways form without even people really even trying. They just kind of tap and roll off the front and no one chases them down. And for me, that's not really the style of racing I like. I like it to be hard and full gas, and when you cross the line, you're empty from the effort. So, in those kind of situations, sometimes you do have to take an opportunity and kind of take the race into your own hands, but also watching other people and kind of sometimes forcing people between a rock and a hard place to see how they react and then following them. Yeah, it all depends on also like who the main team of the day is and like who the kind of protagonists and antagonists would be in the race and following them. Sometimes it's not always up to you to make the race, and that's another thing I've had to learn.
Yeah, that's a hard thing for sure. So when you mentioned coming back to South Africa, racing against teams, you're probably very marked in the sense that you're an athlete with a high potential that races over in Europe. So probably everybody's thinking like, oh, we're going to keep an eye on her when she's back here. You recently won the Cape Town Cycle Tour, which is, for those that don't know, you should look that race up. I think it's the largest mass participation cycling event in the world. It's a massive amount of participants, really cool course. And you recently won that. In that race, how did the tactics shake out, bringing you down into the position where you could actually sprint for the win?
Yeah, that race was pretty special to me in a lot of ways. It was a really difficult build up to that race. And yeah, I came off the back of a national championships that I wasn't really super stoked with. I wasn't entirely happy with my ride, and I definitely believed it wasn't a true reflection of my ability. And yeah, I knew this was my last race in South Africa for the year until I went overseas. So I really wanted to make the most of it. I kind of went into that race practicing positive affirmations since the start of the week. So by the time I arrived on the start line, I was just ultimately really ready to race and really focused on doing my job as well as I could. I knew it would be tough being a solo rider. There was a big team there called Cycle Nation, and they had some of the strongest riders in the race. But thankfully, there were also a lot of other solo riders who were in the same position as me. And the really cool thing about this race is it's always raced very positively, which is great. And there's a lot of exposure to be had for the women's race as well. And yeah, because it's quite a short race as well, it's only 80 Ks long, it's quite exciting from the word go, really. So yeah, I think how the race progressed is that we were kind of rolled out of town with the sun rising over the ocean, like really early in the morning. And it was, I would say, fairly hard from the beginning. But I could kind of tell from when we started that I was on a good day. You just have this feeling, and when you have those days, you'd really want to make the most of them because they don't come along too often in cycling. And yeah, there was a few moves that tried to go over the first few climbs, but I kind of already earmarked the place that I wanted to attack, which was on the second main climb, the longest one of the day, called Chapman's Peak. The pace had definitely increased into the base of that climb, and so it was already kind of stringing out as we went over the first little rise. And then when we got onto the main section of the climb, I found myself in a position where I just went for it. And I looked behind me and there was only one other person with me. And that was really surprising because I did not expect that. We crested the climb with only two of us together and then a small chasing group behind. And that was the most ideal position to be in because I knew I didn't have to do much work and just let them do the work to catch up to us. And really, it was that move that gave me the confidence I needed to attack again on the final climb. And yeah, when I did that, I managed to split the group further so that there was only four of us cresting the top, riding to the finish together, which was really ideal because no one else had any teammates there. And so it meant that, yeah, everyone was riding kind of their own race. And what was really cool as well was my breakaway partners were really committed to the chase or to the break. So there was no one kind of sitting on doing nothing, which was great. We all rolled through right up until the finish. And yeah, I would say Shannara Grove is probably one of the better sprinters in the group, and she went quite early with around like 250 meters to go or so. And yeah, it was actually really strange. Like I had this kind of little voice in my head saying like, this is your day, now go finish the job. And I don't know, never really had any doubts that I could win the race, which was quite a change from how I raced the national champs, where I feel like my mind was definitely saying other things to me. And
Mhm.
it was pretty cool to be able to sprint round and take the win in the end. And it was just such an amazing feeling because, as I said, really difficult build up to that race. And I feel like I really needed that breakthrough performance. So I was really stoked.
That's like super impressive to come into a situation, I guess, and just like know what you want and go after it and execute on the plan. And that's got to feel amazing. How does that contrast now with what you're doing going into the Olympics? I guess, and you don't have to reveal like your team's tactics if you feel that that wouldn't be beneficial or anything else like that. But do you know what your role will be in this race? Yeah, I guess let's start there. What is your plan for the Olympics road race?
Yeah, so for the Olympics, I'm going as a support rider role for Ashley. So essentially, we'll be trying to get the best result possible for South Africa, and hopefully that will be a medal because I really do believe that Ashley has the potential to finish on the podium. So ultimately, I'll be trying my best to help her out as much as possible with that.
That's amazing. Looking back at World Championships last year, you were there in racing that course, which seemed absolutely brutal, by the way. Those steep, hard climbs in that finishing circuit. What did you learn racing in a World Championships field? And because it's similar in some respects to an Olympic field, and how does that compare to what you experienced in your racing in the World Tour on the women's side?
Yeah, so World Champs is always probably the hardest one day race of the whole year. I mean, I haven't raced the classics, so I wouldn't know for sure. But personally, from my experiences, it's definitely the case. And yeah, last year was no different. I think what really differed from last year was the previous edition of World Champs I'd done was 2021 in Flanders, in Belgium. And last year had just come off the back of my second full season of racing overseas, and I could really see how beneficial that had been in preparing me for that event. Yeah, we had over 200 starters for the women, which is just an absolutely crazy field. I've never raced in a field that big in my life, and it was really cool. The race itself, I would say for me, I was quite proud of my ride. To be riding in the top 100 by the end was something that I was quite happy with because it really showed my progression from the previous edition, but also how much more I can still work on. And that was quite motivating. I would say the course I really enjoyed as a whole because we kind of started outside of Glasgow, rode into the city, and then did laps within the city. And it was just a very arduous,
Hmm.
punchy course. It just kind of wore away at all the competitors throughout the race. And yeah, I mean, those climbs aren't very long, but do not underestimate them. They really after a long race, they pack a punch. And yeah, the crowds lining the side of the course were just incredible. I mean, someone made a sign for me. I didn't even know who they were at the time, but it
That's
was
so
really
cool.
cool, like, hearing South African accents shouting on the side of the road. It was really special, and, it was for sure a day I'll never forget, and I think, it was kind of a moment in time where I realized that the pursuit of coming to race overseas and kind of sacrificing time away from home and with my family was all worth it because I was making steps in the right direction and on the right track, and really motivated me to keep pursuing that. And yeah, it was a really special day, and yeah, a day I'll never forget for sure.
Do you remember what sort of power you were having to do up those climbs? And I assume that you weren't really focused on the power in the moment. You were just focusing on the racing in the group. But I don't
Yeah.
know if looking back, you got to see that. I know if I remember the top male athletes just commenting on the fact that like the power needed to get up those climbs at the pace that the group was holding was just outstanding. Like it was shocking to them.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I remember when we entered the circuit with everyone still together, I was having to punch so hard over those climbs. My heart rate was in the red the whole time. And yeah, I mean, I was definitely doing like punching over 400 watts going up there. It
Every
was
single
hard.
one, every
Yeah.
time, many
Yeah.
times over and over.
Exactly. The climbs are quite steep as well, so you generally have to put out quite a high wattage just to get over them. But yeah, it's just like kind of yeah, punch the continuous punch that really takes it out of you.
Mm, yeah, and you're probably well equipped for that with your entire life's building through mountain biking. Now with Paris, it's going to be, it's similar in the sense that you're going to have punchy courses, perhaps not quite as frequent and steep and almost violent, I would say, as that Glasgow course. With this race coming up after the Olympics, do you see your career continuing in road? With your abilities, I could see you, Tiffany, you could go anywhere, like in the sense that you have cross country mountain bike ability that is taking you into the marathon side of things with finishing sixth at Cape Epic, which is just astounding. Incredible finish there. You've won 23 national championships, and I bet that a big amount of those, or a majority of those, come from the mountain bike side of things. And then you also are becoming well versed on the road, and this is kind of like where your focus is now. Is gravel of interest? Do you see yourself continuing with road? What's next?
Yeah, so funnily enough, the only gravel race I've ever done was actually the British National Gravel Champs in 2022, which is quite funny because they allow foreigners to partake in the event, and then I ended up winning the
Oh no.
race. Uh, which is quite funny, seeing as I was not allowed to wear the stripy jersey because I'm not from the UK. But um,
That's
yeah,
funny.
it was pretty funny. So the person who came second, Danny Shrewsbury, who is now crushing it on the gravel scene. She was the national champion, but was second overall. So yeah, it was quite funny. But yeah, I think after doing that race, I'd like to dabble in gravel a little bit more. Not right now, I don't think. Right now, I think I'd really like to focus on the road. Can kind of foresee a few opportunities arising in the future, hopefully. And I really enjoy racing with my current trade team on the road. We have a really great setup this year. The team is awesome and the girls are all really great. They make me feel really at home over here, which is a huge contributing factor to the overall positive experience I've had racing overseas, where a lot of other people don't necessarily have the same experience. And that has also really helped me learn and grow as much as possible. So yeah, as much as I love mountain biking, there's a few more doors that have opened up on the roadside, which yeah, I've always said like whichever door opened, I'd like to try pursue that, and a door opened on the road. So yeah, we're going to continue pursuing that. But for sure, I'd love to still do some mountain bike events alongside the road racing, especially when I'm back home in South Africa. I'd love to do Cape Epic again. I'll probably try see if I can race the Wines to Wales stage race when I get home this year on the mountain bike. And yeah, I still love training on my mountain bike, and riding off road will always be a part of my life, no matter kind of which path I end up on. So yeah, I hope to give racing on the road a good crack over the next few years, and the dream and the goal is still to race full time on a European pro team on the circuit.
That'd be amazing. You're on your way, well on your way. The last question, and maybe we should have asked this in the very beginning. So you work at TrainerRoad as one of our customer support agents. You do an awesome job. And it's funny, like sometimes athletes will like reach out to me and they'll ask for a question. I'll say, you should reach out to our support agents because they're awesome and they'll have really good insight. And then sometimes they come back to like, and I ask them, how'd everything go? And they're like, great, Tiffany helped me. And I'm like, do you know who she is? And then like, it makes like for a really fun conversation. In fact, that just happened yesterday, which is really fun. But
Okay.
within this, I got to ask, how do you balance, because you're in a position where having a job and racing pro is the nature of what your career has to be at this point. So how do you balance that? Going for professional aspirations with sport, but then also maintaining a job to be able to have that stable income to supplement your careers, I guess like your passion in your career.
I think juggling multiple things has been a common theme throughout my life, all the way through school. When I was cycling competitively, I still played a lot of school sport, which I did chose to do out of my own free will because I really enjoyed it. But then having to cram in cycling and still trying to do well at school on top of all of that was hard. So that kind of set the tone for the next few years, where even through university that theme kind of continued. And yeah, I mean, I remember missing like 7 weeks of my second semester of university in my first year when I went to go race overseas on the national team. So yeah, I had quite a bit of catching up to do after that. And so it's just been something been used to doing my whole life. And to work for a company like TrainerRoad is a real privilege, because everyone here is really understanding and supportive of my cycling goals. And our flexible work schedule really allows me to be able to work from wherever I am in the world, which is a really unique opportunity. And yeah, I'm very grateful for it. And yeah, it's probably the best kind of working situation I could ask for, to be able to pursue this dream of cycling and still work alongside it. So yeah, I really actually quite enjoy it, and it's quite nice to be able to clock in and be kind of a customer support agent and not necessarily like Tiffany the cyclist. Like I have
Sorry, Tiffany.
yeah, like I have people like friends at work who just know me as a support agent, and that's quite cool. It's quite
Yeah.
different. And yeah, and I enjoy being able to share like my bike racing experiences with colleagues, but then also kind of other perspectives and other views of life with people that aren't necessarily as involved in the cycling circle. So yeah, I think it's really cool. It's the best of both worlds, really.
Well, we're just stoked to have you, Tiffany. You definitely add like your experience and your insight. And I know you'd like to just, clock in and be Tiffany instead of like the cyclist, but you bring so much in terms of your experience and your knowledge. And that not only helps the people that you're working with in terms of the customer, but also helps all of us here at Trainer Road too. So it's just awesome. And we're proud in that, we haven't turned the pedals for you. It's all your work, but we're just really proud to know you and to be supporting you on this journey that you have. And It's just incredible. So I'm super excited for this road race. We're going to talk more about it once it comes up. And we'll be like, looking into this race because it'll be very exciting and super interesting. Tiffany, is there any parting note or anybody that you want to say thank you to? I guess I'm sure the list is quite long, but any folks in particular that you'd like to thank for helping get you here on this journey?
Firstly, I'd probably say thank you to TrainerRoad for being so supportive of my dreams and goals within cycling and allowing me to still work alongside them as well. And then, yeah, definitely a big shout out to my current trade team, Das Hutchinson Brother UK. Um, yeah, we've been able to kind of race all over the world, and it's really cool. Especially this year, we've had an amazing calendar, and much of my progression has come from racing for the team for the past 2 seasons. This will be my third year with them, and yeah, I'm so grateful for all the learnings and experience I've been able to gain from racing with them, and to see the team grow has also been really special. And yeah, lastly, to probably my all those in my circle, my parents and coach and friends and family that have been so supportive of me for so long and have really helped to make this dream a reality. And yeah, I hope to make them and my country proud on the 4th of August.
That'll be so exciting. I can't wait for it. Well, thanks a bunch, Tiffany. If you enjoyed this episode, we'll put the link down below to Tiffany's Instagram so you can go and follow her there. Support her, send her the best wishes. It'll be an exciting thing to do. And again, if you're curious about TrainerRoad, maybe you want to work for TrainerRoad like Tiffany does, you can go to trainerroad.com/jobs and you can subscribe to an RSS there. That will keep you updated as soon as a job posting goes up. You'll get an email that way and you'll know when it goes up. And if you want to get faster, use TrainerRoad. Tiffany helps people using it every day to get faster. It's really exciting stuff. So thanks, everybody, and we will talk to you next time.